Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome if you're new. My name's Nicole and I thought I'd do something a little different for this video. I'm gonna go ahead and show you the meals that I made for the week, and I'm also throwing in a few desserts that I've tried as well, and I'm gonna go ahead and link down below any of the recipe links that I did use for following, and some of these I just winged it and they turned out delicious. So let's get started on Monday. I ended up making chicken flautas. So in my house, I make this a lot for my family. For this one, I did use cooked rotisserie chicken breasts that I had in the freezer. This is from Costco, and I just defrosted it and shredded it up. This is about 2 to 3 cups of chicken breast, and I went ahead and added about half a small can of green chilies in there, so with some garlic salt and a lot of black pepper. And before rolling, I went ahead and I made a little paste of 1 part flour, 2 parts water, and that's gonna help to seal up the edges when I'm rolling these out. I am using corn tortillas here, and I warm them up in a wrapped paper towel in the microwave because that really helps to make them more pliable as you're rolling these out, and they don't tear. They don't tear so easily. Once I get these all rolled out, then they're ready to hit the stove. On my pan, I'm gonna go ahead and start on my rice. For this day, I did make cilantro lime rice, which my husband really loves. And I first start off my pan with a little bit of oil, adding some chopped onions and chopped garlic, and get those sauteing for a bit. For this rice, I do use day-old white rice because once white rice is really dried out, it absorbs all of the flavors that you put back into it very well. So for this, I just add a bit of chicken bouillon. This is about 3 cups of white rice, so I add maybe about 2 tablespoons of chicken bouillon, some pepper, and then I go ahead and squeeze in a good amount of lime. We like it really limey. And then a good handful of chopped parsley, and that rice is done. So next, I'm moving on to frying up my flautas. I do it seam side down, and I really only do a shallow fry on these. Once they're golden, they're pretty much done. So that only takes about maybe 2 minutes per side. And once these are out of the pan, I put them on a cooling rack so that they don't get soggy on me and they stay nice and crispy. And then definitely while they're still hot and warm on the cooling rack, I salt them right away because the tortillas will absorb that salt better. And then I'm also gonna add just a super simple side of these canned refried beans. And I also have some fresh queso fresco that I bought from the store. So if you haven't used this Mexican cheese before, it's not really a melting cheese, it's more of a crumbling cheese. And I put it on top of my beans. I serve my flautas with some shredded lettuce, some green salsa, and a dollop of sour cream with all my sides. And this dinner is so, so good. It's on our regular rotation. We do not go very long without eating flautas again. So this next day is Tuesday, and it happened to be 4th of July. So we rarely ever go without a good potato salad on 4th of July. So I go ahead and get that started a little bit earlier in the day so the potato salad has some time to meld flavors together. And I get started peeling my potatoes, chopping them up. And then I always start my potatoes in cold salted water so that they cook more evenly rather than starting them in boiling water. I also do some eggs because we make our potato salad with eggs. And then I go ahead and chop up the eggs. Right when the potatoes get out of the water, you know, after about 15-20 minutes when they're done, I add garlic, salt, and pepper right away because the potatoes, while they're still warm, they'll absorb those flavors a lot better than when it's cold. And we do like a bit of onion flavor and texture in our potato salad, so I always add a couple strands of green onions in there. I add lots of pepper, just maybe like a teaspoonful of mustard, and then mayonnaise to your liking. We like ours pretty mayo-y. And then I just add some paprika on top and then store it in the fridge until we're ready for dinner later. We also had corn on the cob, which I just boiled for about 5 minutes just to make them really tender because I'm gonna put a little char on them later. And these I did elote style. So I made my own crema with a little bit of mayo, just a tablespoon of sour cream, and then a good squeeze of lime, and store that in the fridge until we were ready to plate. And then I'll add some chili pepper later on the corn as well. So I got my grill pan really hot because we were doing hamburgers. And I brushed on just some oil to get it started. And I made some hamburger patties, just free form, with some seasoned salt on top, some pepper. And I tried to make sure that my grill is really hot so that I can get some good grill marks on them. Then later I added my corn to also get some grill marks on those and reheat them a bit. I did add my brioche buns to also get a bit toasted, and then added a little bit of cheese on the burgers. And for ours, I assemble them with some of the secret sauce that I get from Walmart. It's a dupe for Big Mac sauce, basically. It tastes just like it. I added a little bit of chopped jalapeno and onion in the burger because we like it a little spicy. And my husband also wanted a hot dog because hamburgers and hot dogs are 4th of July for him. And this dinner was so, so good. Definitely love the elote corn. It turned out so yummy. I added a little chili pepper on it just for just a touch of heat. So, so good. And for dessert this night, I also started earlier in the day so that I could set up, but I did make like a traditional strawberry pretzel salad, which I've actually never made before, but I've eaten. So I just made a small batch here so that my husband can try it since he wasn't really sure about it. I grinded up my pretzels in my food processor, added some light brown sugar and butter, and then put it in the oven for about 10 minutes at 350. And I'm starting on my strawberry jello. I used 2 packets here, which I probably shouldn't have done for such a small batch, but made the jello, put it in the fridge, and then got started on my cream cheese layer. Mixed in my sugar with just a fork because I didn't want to reach out for my beater, but it ended up fine. I also threw in half of a tub of Cool Whip since this is only a small batch. And then once my crust was cooled, I went ahead and added my cream cheese layer and then sliced up a bunch of strawberries and added my slightly thickened jello on there. Threw it in the fridge and had this for dessert. It was so, so good. Next time I would probably try it with graham crackers rather than pretzels, but still very yummy. The next day I made chicken schnitzel with gravy and mashed potatoes. So again, I'm just starting off on getting my potatoes peeled and chopped up, putting them in my cold salted water and letting those boil for about 15 to 20 minutes. So while that's working, I'm chopping up all of my mushrooms. The recipe for the gravy did list cremini mushrooms. These are Baby Bella's. I'm not sure if those are the same or not, but I have those sliced up. I'm also working on chopping up maybe a good handful of fresh parsley because I always like to add that to my mashed potatoes and my sauces. And then I have 3 cloves of garlic that I am chopping up as well. And those will be sauteing with my mushrooms. Once my potatoes are done, again, I like to season those right when they're warm. So I added my garlic salt, my pepper in there. And I do make my mashed potatoes with a bit of butter and cream cheese. This is about 1/4 of a bar of cream cheese. And I also add milk, and this makes my mashed potatoes so creamy. I throw in just a bit of that fresh chopped parsley and they are done. Next, I'm getting started on my chicken schnitzel. So I know that typically I think chicken breasts are used for this, but I had chicken tenders on hand, so I figured those would be fine. Since they get flattened anyways, here I just put plastic wrap on top, used my rolling pin, worked fine. And I'm only lightly seasoning these with some garlic powder, salt, and pepper because I plan to use gravy anyways. And then I have my assembly line here for my breading, which is just plain flour, eggs, and then my panko breadcrumbs. I'm hoping that these turn out very crispy since I'm using the panko crumbs. And once these are all breaded, I get them ready for a pan fry. Now I get started in making sure my oil is hot on the pan. I go ahead and throw my chicken on there. And because they're so thin, it really only takes maybe about 3 to 4 minutes, maybe more like 3 minutes each side. And they get really nice and golden. They have a great color on them. Next after that, I want to get started sauteing my mushrooms with some butter. Once those get a little bit of color on them, I do add in those chopped cloves of garlic in here and get those working as well with the mushrooms. And this smelled so good. Just this combination of mushrooms, butter, and garlic smelled amazing. I removed that from the pan to get started on a good roux. I added about 2 tablespoons of butter and then a little bit, I think about 4 tablespoons of flour was in the recipe. I added that and I tried to work the flour in pretty well to get it cooked down a bit. And it was not in the recipe, but I went ahead and added a good splash of red wine to this. I find that adding either a red or a white wine to my roux really gives it like a good depth of flavor. So I always do that. For this one, I added a red wine because this is more like a beef gravy. And I'm gonna go ahead and add in my beef broth. I had beef bone broth on hand, so I added that. And I used a whisk to really work in that flour and roux so that there's no lumps. And then I just season it with some salt and pepper just to taste and get my mushroom garlic mixture back in the gravy to really come together. And it smelled so good and it tasted delicious. I highly recommend this gravy if you haven't tried it before. And I went ahead and plated that on top of my Schnitzel chicken tenders on the bed of mashed potatoes. And I just served this with a simple sweet kale salad kit from Costco. Added on a little bit of parsley, and this dinner was amazing. Highly recommend trying this chicken schnitzel. And then for dessert this night, I saw online this chocolate cake recipe that you can do for 1 or 2 people, and it's in a small little ramekin, and it's just one of those microwavable ones. Super simple, just flour, cocoa powder, baking powder, a little bit of sugar, milk, and it said you literally put it in the microwave for 50 seconds. And I was a little bit in disbelief only because I have not made these sort of microwavable desserts before, but I thought I'd give it a try. My husband loves chocolate cake, but I did. It literally cooked in 50 seconds in the microwave. I even stuck a toothpick in to make sure, and yeah, it came out. I'll say the only difficult thing was getting it out of that ramekin, but I fought it and got it on the plate, let it cool, and then just piled on a little bit of chocolate frosting that I had in my cabinet with a few sprinkles. And my husband actually really liked this for a simple, easy chocolate cake for 1. I would say it's more kind of like a box cake, reminds me of a box cake. I would add maybe a little bit of vanilla next time, but still decent. For this next night, I made Philly cheesesteak sandwiches with a side of beer battered onion rings. We also really love these onion rings. I think I've made them on my channel before, but I went ahead and get started on cutting up my onion. It's pretty large, and 1 onion creates a lot of rings. For this one, I follow Martha Stewart's beer batter onion ring recipe. It never fails. It's so easy. It's just flour, some salt, white pepper, baking powder, and 1 cup of whatever beer you have on hand, and just a little bit of ice water. And really, all you're doing is making sort of a wet batter to put your onion rings in. And I have on the side, just in that black Tupperware, I have just 1 cup of plain white flour. And all I do is I take the onion rings that I cut up, shake them a little bit, dust them in that plain white flour, and then I go ahead and dunk them in this wet batter that I'm making. And that's it. It's just such an easy, simple beer batter. And it's more of it fries up sort of like a tempura style because of that beer. And they are so, so light and crispy. So once I get these dunked in the batter, I already have my oil heating up on the stove. And you really don't need a ton, maybe just about 1 inch of oil, just enough so that the onion rings can float and they're not scraping the bottom of your pan. And then I just use some chopsticks to float these in and turn them. That's the easiest way I've found. And these also cook up very quickly, maybe about 2 to 3 minutes on each side until they're golden, and then turn them and they are done. I go ahead and get these out of the pan, and you want to put these on a wire rack because you don't want them to get soggy after you've worked to get them so crispy. So I get them out, I put them on a wire rack and then salt them, a little sprinkle of salt right away. And then I just kind of free form a dip here, which is 2 parts mayo, 1 part gochujang. I would use sriracha, but because of the shortage, I can't find any. So I end up using gochujang. And then off camera, I added a little bit of barbecue sauce. And it's sort of a dupe for the onion ring sauce at Red Robin, if you've ever had that. It's sweet, tangy, and really good. And so now that my onion rings are done, I move on to the Phillies. So for ours, I'm gonna saute some onions and some bell peppers with our Philly cheesesteaks, just in a little bit of oil. And then I use these steakums that I got from, well, you can get these from any grocery store, but they're just really super thinly sliced steaks of beef. And they're frozen. They come in the frozen aisle or refrigerated aisle. And because they're so thin, these sheets cook up super, super fast. They're not seasoned though, so you do have to season them. I add a little bit of minced dash onion and herb, some seasoned salt on there, a lot of pepper, and then they really cook up super, super fast. Once these are done, I go ahead and add in my cheese. I add in, this is what you see on the pan right now is just for one sandwich so far, and that's my husband's. He likes a lot of meat in his. I add in 2 slices of provolone cheese because provolone's a good melting cheese. And then add the veggies on top. I probably should have added 3 slices of provolone because he likes his very cheesy. But I have a loaf of French bread that I just cut off, maybe about 6 inches worth, and I put that in the pan to get it nice and toasty. I add mayo and put the sandwich together, and this dinner was just so, so good. If you love Phillies and onion rings, delicious. For dessert this night, I also tried a new sort of chocolate chip cookie bar recipe. I got my pan buttered and then added butter, brown sugar, an egg, vanilla extract. I added a little bit of baking powder to my dry ingredients, my salt. And then once I got that mixed up, I add it back to those wet ingredients. Basically just like a cookie dough consistency. I add in a 1/4 cup of chocolate chips because that's what the recipe said, but I decided that wasn't enough. So I ended up adding a little more, and I went ahead and added this to my buttered Pyrex dish. And then I put it in the oven at 350 for about 25-26 minutes, and it cooked up really well. If I were to do this again, I would probably do it in a smaller dish so that the bars would be thicker, but I went ahead and cut it and dollop some whipped cream, and it was so, so good. Please let me know if you try any of them or if you like this style of video and you want me to do more of these. And thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.